The U.S. sneezes and Canada catches a cold. Markets are crashing, but this ain't 2008. We're in a lot of trouble. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. On Friday, U.S. markets took a major hit. The S&P 500 lost 1.5 trillion. Yes, trillion with a T. And other markets saw major sell-offs as well. Then came the Japanese market on Monday with its biggest loss in over 30 years. More losses came on the U.S. markets on Monday, followed by a slight rebound after the markets closed, so an after trading. Let's take a look at a Fox News report and then we'll discuss it.
We are covering a global market sell-off this morning. This is underway right now. Now, the Nasdaq entered correction territory on Friday, but we have seen a worsening in the futures market of the major indices since we have been on the air since 6 a.m. Eastern time. We are barely off of session lows, but the Dow Jones Industrial is now down 1,250 points. That is a loss of more than 3%. The Nasdaq is down 1,067. That is a loss of 5.75%, and the S&P is down 231. That is a loss of more than 4.25%. I want to say also Europe is also in a tailspin. Just to let you know here, we do have the FTSE, the CAC 40, and the DAX, and all of them are substantially down. Germany taking the worst hit, down almost 3.5%. Asia, we had read across the board, and remember what we saw in Japan. Japan's now in a bear market. Japan lost 12%, over 12% actually, at the close. Mark Tepper and Liz Peek are on set with me. We have been watching this together all morning long. Mark.
It's getting ugly real fast out there. So, I mean, look, right now, the volatility index or the fear gauge, which is a measure of how afraid investors are right now, it's at a 65. And just to put that in perspective, if we go back to March of 2020, when the pandemic was full swing and people were locked up in their houses, it was 53. It's 65 right now. You go back to March of 2009 when we had the banking crisis, it was 44. We're at a 65 right now. Investors are incredibly scared. And I have to tell you, this cannot just be due to Friday's payroll report, because on Friday, the market was down about 2%. So there's more going on than just that. I think the other two issues are, number one, Warren Buffett unloaded half of his Apple position. That's a guy who's buy and hold forever. All of a sudden, he's, maybe he doesn't have a high conviction on Apple going forward. And then obviously the increasing probability of a full-scale war in the Middle East. You put those three things together, and it's an ugly situation in the markets today.
And Liz, yeah, I mean, the initial, caveat to this was that jobs report last Friday, and we saw the market sell off on Friday. Fears of a recession, brewing over the weekend. But to Mark's point, you have a potential strike on Israel by Iran, as well as we're in election year. I mean, there's a lot of things that the recession talk is really what.
Look, I think on the economy, the jobs report was pretty poor, but it really kind of brought to a head a lot of concerns about credit card delinquency spiking, consumer sentiment being in the toilet again and perpetually over the last several months. The fact that consumer spending is dwindling. I just think there are an awful lot of reasons people were concerned about a possible slowdown in the economy, and now there is actual evidence that it's happening, and the tip of the spear is job creation. And if we begin to see unemployment go even higher, that really discourages spending, and that's 70% of the economy. I also think, and maybe it's just me, the country feels completely leaderless. I mean, who is speaking out? Who is talking to the American people? Joe Biden can't. It really appears like every time he tries to do that, it's kind of a catastrophe. And Kamala Harris has not stepped up. So here we are, as you point out, Cheryl, facing increased possibility of actual war now in the Middle East, but talked about for months, but now it seems to be at a breaking point, and there is no one talking to the American people. I think that's very unnerving.
Donald Lutzka mentioned that to us earlier in this hour about the fact that it's a compounding effect of what you're saying, and that you're saying not the jobs report, concerns about about a potential recession. The Fed did not make a move last week. Are they going to cut by half a point next month, a quarter point? All of that, Mark, is changing. And then I do want to point out to our viewers that I was looking at the 2 and the 10 year just now, and the 2 and the 10 yield curves turned positive, which isn't a good thing. So that's something else that we're watching right now, Mark.
6.5 cuts are now priced in by the end of January. That is incredible. And that only happens if you are expecting a recession. The Fed's not doing that to be nice. They're not doing that to lower mortgage rates so people can buy a house. That is trouble. That spells trouble. And I think I think investors are finally starting to come to the realization that, investors wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted rate cuts with no recession.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen that often.
We could be hopeful that was going to happen.
Correct. But obviously things have changed. Yeah. And when you're looking at the facts that we have at our fingertips today, it's looking uglier and uglier.
So how does all this affect Canada? We all know that interest rates under Trudeau have gone up significantly. This has put enormous pressure on many markets. The Bank of Canada did this to try and slow the economy. I'm no financial expert, but if you're trying to slow the economy because prices are going up, how come inflation continued to skyrocket after interest rates were raised? Well, that's because interest rates aren't the only thing that drives higher prices. Taxation, overspending by the government, printing money, all that drives higher prices. And we're about to experience the aftermath of all those problems. Think of this. A lot of people bought houses when rates were fairly low, but they've jumped up significantly. And when they go to renew, if those rates aren't significantly lower than what they are now, more and more people will start losing their houses. Now, according to Bloomberg, and I've linked a Bloomberg article as well as a CNN article, as well as the Fox News report that we just watched in the description below. The NASDAQ saw its worst monthly start since 2008. And we all know what happened in 2008. And you heard in that news clip about the fear gauge. That's its highest since 1990. In fact, traders are betting that the market will deteriorate so fast that there is a 60% chance of an emergency rate reduction. Callie Cox, who works for Ritholtz Wealth Management, says that the economy is not in a crisis yet, but we are in the danger zone. And she goes on to speak about the cracks in the jobs market. But why is this far, far worse for Canada than it was in 2008? Well, in 2008, our economy was doing quite well, mainly due to the Stephen Harper government and not overspending. The Conservative government built a strong Canadian economy that weathered the storm a lot better than the mortgage crisis in the US. Then came Trudeau, and Trudeau has dragged our economy down. We've had the most bloated government, the most overspending, and the worst number of corruption scandals since his father was prime minister. So while our good financial policies helped us out in 2008, we no longer have that luxury. This could just be a blip, but just prior to the Great Depression, the market saw an 8% dip. Friday, however, they saw a 12% dip. This doesn't necessarily mean there will be a recession or a depression, but it's a good indicator that there may be. So if you want one more reason to vote Conservative in the next election, you just found one. Because even if the crash doesn't come this month or next month or before the end of the year, it will eventually come if we don't turn this ship around. And when it comes, we have to be in a far better financial place to weather the storm. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you have to say. Put your comments below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And if you're interested in US politics, I do have another channel, Cavalryman USA. The link is in the description. Head over there, watch those videos, and subscribe to that channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.